Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dear Career. We, on this podcast, similar to Dear Abby, receive questions from audience members or friends, clients, etc., and we tackle answering them from two different career coaches' perspective. I'm Nikki, and this is Julie.
Hello, it's lovely to see you today. And Nikki, we have a really interesting question that has come through on my Instagram messages, actually. So today it's I know I can't keep doing the job that I'm doing, but I have absolutely no idea what I want instead. How do I start figuring it out without making a reckless decision? And I love that, because so often we fall into a job sometimes, and you speak to so many different people, and it's like, well, how did you choose your career? How did you end up doing what you're doing now? And a lot of people will say, well, I don't know, I just kind of fell into this position and then I just stayed here and then became more of an expert in it. Some people specifically choose the career that they want to get into, and a lot of people don't and just end up doing something that, that they've fallen into. So I don't know if you've had that experience, Nikki.
I definitely have, and it's interesting because I've gotten a lot more of these over the years. And I think where my advice would begin has actually changed in the last few months. And I would tell folks to start with what are your transferable skills and what are the labor market needs. I think when I first started coaching, a lot of times I started with the big question of like, what else do you want to do? What else do you want to dream about? And then clients would spend time on that, but would ultimately usually come back to, well, I can't go back to school for that, or I can't do this thing. And so I would maybe start smaller and think
Hmm.
about what are my transferable skills that the labor market needs that are the easiest first next parts for me, and
Yeah,
see if any of those interest you. I would
yeah.
potentially think about starting there at least, just because it's a very practical place to start. That doesn't mean I want you to like give up the overarching, like, what do I really want to be doing? But I do feel like that's a safe exercise to start with to see patterns for what looks interesting to you.
I love that. That's very, very true. And I also think from a practical point of view, you really have to think about your non-negotiables. So finances, your
Yes.
money, your flexibility, commute, even like pace of work, or, how much travel that you might do, in your current role as well. The autonomy that you have, some that's important to a lot of people, but also the kind of stress that you can live with. These are all things that are perhaps non-negotiables that you need to consider for your lifestyle first. It's learning what you've got that is good in your current role, even if you know that you can't keep doing it, you don't want to keep doing it, so that that can actually go towards helping build out what's a future role. And whether that starts with finances, whether that starts with money and benefits, or including that commute distance, or what sort of stress or pace of work that you want to, those practical elements rather than the actual job itself are worth possibly looking at sometimes, as opposed to going straight in and thinking, what job do I want to do? Because there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders when you do that as well. You start thinking, what job do I want to do? What career do I want to go into? And actually, if you flip it on its head and think about those practical aspects first, that's sometimes a good foundation to build off.
I like that a lot. Another thing that I would like to add is having worked with clients for so many years, sometimes clients keep coming back to culture and organization. And that's great. Like wanting to know what you need in a boss, wanting like a certain culture in the next company. And I hear those things over and over. And then I find myself asking them, okay, but let's set aside that. Like we need to figure out what you want to do first. And we can worry about finding those things later because those are things you can validate through
Yeah.
networking, through the interview process. And folks will just get so hung up on like the type of organization or just how it makes them feel that they
Yeah.
don't go through the process of identifying what type of job they want. And I think
Mm,
it's really important to keep in mind your personality type. I mean, I'm not like some woo woo, like, oh, do your Enneagram and it's going to like tell you what job to do. But I do think that when folks are looking for something entirely different, usually there is some kind of misalignment between what they're doing and maybe like what their personality is most naturally like
yeah.
inclined towards. So I think doing some work there in terms of like, where is that a good fit? And then adding in the transferable skills. If that's not giving you a couple of pathways, then I definitely think it's worthwhile to work with a coach on more of the overarching questions to figure out why are you still so stuck, which there are a lot of folks that are. And I empathize with that. But I think that those should at least get you going in a good direction. Do you find
Mhm.
that with some clients sometimes, Julie?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do. And I think again, it's that pressure that you put on your shoulders as well. But I do think as well, to complement that way of thinking, is for you to almost aim for you could aim for a better next step, but not that forever answer. Because again, I think, most, that saying that action creates action. Well, most careers, in my opinion, often become clearer through that movement and maybe not overthinking or putting that extra pressure on your shoulders. I agree with you.
I will do some shameless self-promoting here, Julie. I
Go for
ran
it.
into this so much when I first started my resume writing business that I did create a guide called First Find Your Own Path because it's so
Yes.
important to identify what you want to do before doing the resume. And that is available on my website. And then in terms of the transferable skills, that is an exercise that I can do with clients where I have an AI tool that I have a proprietary assessment where we ask you questions like some of the things you've been discussing, like commute and stress level or income you need to be at. And we go through that based on your background, and you'll have like a 30-page report afterwards that tells
Mm.
you where you really fit into the marketplace and like how to land some of those jobs. And so I do think that these really, really big questions are worth working with a coach, such as you or I, to identify some things and have more of a concrete action plan.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it feels too scattered, I 100% agree. Movement is key. Keep moving. But I do think it can be helpful to work with someone so that they keep you on track,
Yeah.
because I've seen some folks like they've been in my life for 5 years now and they're still talking about some of these things, but they haven't made progress. And so if you're really ready to make progress, that's the time to hire a coach. If you're
Yeah.
not ready to have the progress or do some of the work yet, you have to wait until you're there or figure out what it will take to get you there, because otherwise you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
At least that's my opinion. I don't know how you have found that to be, Julie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think as well, there's this perception with this question, and it's quite interesting when we look at the question, I know I can't keep doing this job, but I've absolutely no idea what I want instead. Your mind almost goes to it's someone maybe early in their career who is maybe looking at still having that time to think about going into a different career. But I can tell you now that a lot of the people that I work with, who typically are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, still have this, I can't keep doing this job, but I've no idea what I want to do instead. And there's that whole extra layer of fear that's in there as well. And it's again going back to that practicalities, but it's also allowing yourself to explore and think, not think I'm too old or I can't look at other options, because it is never too late, but there are extra layers that you have to consider if you're asking yourself this question at a later stage in your career as well. And again, like you were saying, your report is excellent. That's good for anybody at any age to do. And working with a coach who can help you move through those questions and perhaps throw some things to you which you might not have considered are really valuable. That input from an external thinker, from an external support, can really help you with where it is that you want to go, but also help you understand where it is you don't want to go, because there's
Yeah.
nothing worse than reaching this stage of, like you say, leaving your position where you're at, where you might have stability, you might have the benefits that you want, but you physically don't like being in that environment anymore, or working with the people that you're doing, or just doing the job that you're doing. So I think knowing what you do want, what you don't want, and having that external support to help you find that, asking you the right questions, is really important. I agree 100% with what you were saying earlier about that, and your resources that you have, I know, are excellent for that, but also nutting it out with someone face to face really helps as well.
Definitely having someone like you asking really deep, insightful questions, especially having a background in it and having seen a lot of people go through it, can be so helpful for a client because it can save them a lot of time and it can get them thinking outside of their own head. I have been going through some confidence training, so I'll just end on, according to my confidence training, our lack of like decisiveness on things comes down to a fear of rejection, a fear
Mm-hmm.
of remorse, or a fear of failure. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I buy into things always being that simplified into fitting into categories, but I would ask yourself if any of those things are coming into play, and then working with a coach to maybe have an action plan on that might be helpful.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you.
I hope that that helps. We definitely would love to get some more questions. If you want to give your name on them, great. If anyone ever wants to sit in and do a like live mini little session where they
Yeah.
have two different coaches like firing some things at them, we'd love to have it if you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
But we are so happy to be here, and we hope that we're helping make a difference for some of you and driving some positive change. That's our goal.
Absolutely. And if you've got questions, then message them in the comments below or on our DMs, or you can find each of our websites as well. We're going to pop all the links below for you to find. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next
Yes.
session of Dear Career.
Sounds great. Bye, Julie. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you.